stares at her reflection every morning, knowing that her face opens doors but never reveals what lies behind them. Men desire her body but flee from her mind. Women befriend her for status but secretly resent her existence. Schopenhauer wrote, "Beauty is a short-lived tyranny." He understood what most beautiful women discover too late, that their greatest gift becomes their deepest prison. The curse isn't in being ugly. The curse is in being beautiful enough that nobody sees who you really are. Comment now, "I am invisible," if you've ever felt reduced to your appearance, while your soul screamed for recognition. Section 1. The Golden Cage, when beauty becomes isolation. Have you ever watched a beautiful woman enter a room? The conversation stops. Eyes follow. Assumptions form before she speaks her first word. Everyone thinks they know her story, her worth, her purpose. But here's what Schopenhauer understood that most people miss. Beauty doesn't grant power. It grants the illusion of power while stealing authentic connection. The philosopher's dark insight. Schopenhauer observed that beautiful women live in a peculiar form of solitary confinement. They're surrounded by admirers, but starved of genuine understanding. They receive attention but rarely respect. They're desired as objects, but dismissed as humans. Beauty, he wrote, is nature's bait. But what he didn't mention is that the beautiful woman becomes trapped in her own lure, unable to escape the very attraction that defines her existence. The daily reality of the beautiful woman. She walks into job interviews where her qualifications become secondary to her appearance. Colleagues assume she's there for decoration, not contribution. Her intelligence threatens because it contradicts their comfortable narrative that beauty and brains cannot coexist. She enters relationships where men compete to possess her image but flee when confronted with her complexity. They want the fantasy of her, not the reality. They desire her beauty but fear her depth, her opinions, her independent thoughts that might shatter their projection. The psychological prison. Sarah learned this truth brutally at 25. Blessed with the kind of beauty that stops traffic, she'd spent her life watching people make assumptions about her character, her intelligence, her worth based solely on her appearance. Men approached her with confidence, but crumbled when she displayed intellectual curiosity that surpassed their own. Women initially welcomed her into social circles, but gradually excluded her when their partners paid too much attention to her presence. Sarah realized she was living in a golden cage, admired but never truly known, desired but never deeply loved, envied but never genuinely befriended. The cruel economics of beauty. Beautiful women discover that their attractiveness operates like currency that gradually devalues. In their teens and 20s, beauty opens every door. By their 30s, the same doors begin to close. By their 40s, they face the existential terror of losing their primary source of social value. Unlike men, who can build worth through achievement, intelligence, and character throughout their lives, beautiful women often find their entire identity constructed around a depreciating asset. They become emotional stock traders watching their only investment lose value daily. The friendship impossibility. Female friendships become minefields of comparison and resentment. Less attractive women befriend beautiful women to bask in reflected social status, but secretly harbor jealousy that poisons genuine connection. Beautiful women learn to downplay their appearance to maintain friendships, hiding their natural gifts to avoid triggering insecurities in others. They develop complex strategies to appear normal, while navigating the constant undercurrent of envy and competition. The professional paradox. In professional environments, beauty becomes a liability disguised as an advantage. Beautiful women receive opportunities based on appearance but struggle to be taken seriously for their actual capabilities. They face the impossible choice: leverage their beauty and be dismissed as superficial, or suppress it and be accused of false modesty. Either path leads to professional isolation and intellectual underestimation. Schopenhauer's tragic recognition. Schopenhauer recognized that beauty, rather than being a gift, often becomes a form of existential punishment. The beautiful woman spends her life being seen but never understood, wanted but never truly needed, admired but never authentically loved. She becomes a living artwork in a museum, observed, analyzed, and appreciated from a distance, but never touched by genuine human connection. The internal dialogue. Behind her perfect exterior, she asks questions that would break hearts. Would anyone love me if I were ordinary? Do they see me or just my reflection? Am I valuable beyond what I look like? Will anyone care about my thoughts when my beauty fades? These questions haunt beautiful women because they understand, often unconsciously, that their primary form of social capital is temporary and superficial. Pause this video right now. Think of a beautiful woman you know and ask yourself, do you really see her or just her appearance? Comment, beauty is lonely. If you've ever felt isolated by the very thing that makes you attractive, in exactly 90 seconds, you'll discover why beautiful women often sabotage their own relationships before others can abandon them. Section 2. The Mirror of Emptiness. When reflection becomes obsession, there's a scene that plays out in bathrooms across the world every morning. She stands before the mirror, not admiring herself, but conducting a forensic examination. Is that a new line? Does this lighting show imperfections? How many more years before the magic fades? The philosopher's understanding of vanity. Schopenhauer wrote about the will to live as a cruel master that enslaves us to desires we cannot satisfy. For beautiful women, this slavery takes a particularly tortuous form, the obsession with maintaining an image that time will inevitably destroy. What others see as vanity is actually terror. The beautiful woman knows her power is borrowed time. Every glance in the mirror becomes a negotiation with mortality, a desperate attempt to freeze what nature designed to change. The daily ritual of self-surveillance. She develops microscopic awareness of every flaw invisible to others. A pimple becomes a catastrophe. Weight fluctuation triggers emotional crisis. Aging signs that would be normal for anyone else feel like personal failures requiring immediate correction. This isn't narcissism, it's survival instinct. When your entire social value rests on appearance, maintaining that appearance becomes a full-time job with no retirement plan. The cosmetic industrial complex. Beautiful women become the primary casualties of industries designed to exploit appearance anxiety. They spend fortunes on skincare, procedures, and treatments, not from vanity, but from the rational fear that losing beauty means losing everything. The irony is devastating. The more beautiful a woman is, the more paranoid she becomes about losing that beauty. The gift becomes the source of perpetual anxiety, transforming daily life into a constant battle against time and gravity. The comparison trap. Social media amplifies this psychological torture exponentially. Beautiful women compare themselves not just to peers, but to filtered, edited, surgically enhanced versions of reality. They develop body dysmorphia despite being objectively attractive because the standard of comparison has become literally impossible. They know these images are fake, but their emotional responses remain real. Every photo becomes a reminder of imperfection in a world that demands flawlessness from those who dare to be beautiful. The internal contradiction. Here's where Schopenhauer's insight becomes particularly cruel. Beautiful women simultaneously depend on their appearance for social power, while resenting that dependence. They want to be valued for more than looks while knowing their looks provide their primary advantage. This creates an internal war between gratitude and resentment, confidence and insecurity, self-love and self-hatred that defines their psychological landscape. The aging terror. While men can become distinguished with age, women face the cultural narrative that aging equals irrelevance. Beautiful women, having built their entire identity around appearance, face existential crisis as youth fades. They watch younger women receive the attention, opportunities, and admiration they once enjoyed, realizing they're being slowly replaced by newer models in the showroom of social desirability. The relationship sabotage pattern. This terror manifests in relationship patterns that seem irrational to observers. Beautiful women often sabotage promising relationships not from lack of interest, but from the subconscious belief that their partner will eventually abandon them for someone younger and more attractive. They test their partner's commitment through dramatic behavior, pushing them away before they can be left. It's emotional self-defense disguised as instability. The professional identity crisis. Beautiful women who attempt to build careers based on merit face constant questioning of their achievements. Did she earn that promotion through competence or appearance? Are her ideas taken seriously, or is she just nice to look at during meetings? This doubt confidence in their own abilities and creates imposter syndrome even when their achievements are legitimate. Schopenhauer's recognition of the trap. Schopenhauer understood that beauty, particularly feminine beauty, becomes a prison precisely because it provides temporary power within a system that ultimately discards its prisoners. The beautiful woman gains early advantage in a game, rigged against her long-term success. She becomes addicted to validation that's inherently unstable, building her sense of self on a foundation guaranteed to crumble. The philosopher saw this as one of nature's cruelest jokes, giving women a gift that becomes their curse. The mirror never lies, but it never tells the truth. Every morning she faces the mirror knowing it shows only surface reality, while her entire worth has been reduced to that surface. The reflection becomes both her source of power and her prison warden, reminding her daily that her value expires with her youth. Comment mirror anxiety. If you've ever stood in front of a mirror seeing flaws that others claim don't exist, the third revelation will expose why society programs beautiful women to become their own worst enemies. Section 3. The objectification engine. When humanity becomes commodity, she's learned to recognize the look, not admiration, assessment. Eyes that scan her body like a barcode reader pricing merchandise. Men who speak to her breasts instead of her face. Women who evaluate her as competition before knowing her name. Schopenhauer understood that beauty transforms human beings into objects, but he couldn't have predicted how systematically modern society would perfect this dehumanization. The philosopher's economic insight. Schopenhauer wrote that all satisfaction, or what is commonly called happiness, is really and essentially always negative only. For beautiful women, this negative happiness manifests as being valued not for what they are, but for what they provide others. Visual pleasure, status elevation, ego validation. They become human accessories in other people's lives, decorative elements that enhance others' experiences, while their own humanity becomes increasingly invisible. The male gaze as economic system. Men approach beautiful women with transactional mindsets. They invest attention, money, and effort, expecting returns measured in access, validation, or conquest. The woman becomes a vending machine. Insert charm, receive sexual or emotional gratification. This commodification happens so consistently that beautiful women develop defensive mechanisms that appear cold or entitled to those who don't understand the constant barrage of objectification they endure. The workplace objectification complex. In professional environments, beautiful women navigate a minefield of inappropriate attention disguised as mentorship, opportunity, or collaboration. Their ideas get filtered through their appearance. Their competence gets questioned while their attractiveness gets overanalyzed. They learn to dress down, speak up more aggressively, and overcompensate intellectually, just to be seen as human beings with valuable contributions rather than decoration that occasionally makes noise. The social media commodification. Digital platforms have transformed beauty into literal currency. Beautiful women can monetize their appearance through various online platforms, but this monetization comes with complete objectification. Comment sections become marketplaces where strangers evaluate, critique, and rate their bodies like products. They receive thousands of messages from men who see them as purchasable experiences rather than complex human beings. The friendship impossibility. Female friendships become contaminated by comparison culture. Less attractive women use beautiful friends as props for social media, feeling validated by association, while secretly resenting the attention differential. Beautiful women learn to navigate these friendships carefully, downplaying their advantages and overcompensating with generosity or self-deprecation to maintain connections with women who can't separate their insecurities from the friendship. The dating objectification cycle. Dating becomes a parade of men who are more interested in possessing beauty than knowing the person behind it. They fall in love with an image and become angry when reality doesn't match their fantasy. Beautiful women develop sophisticated screening processes to identify men who see them as human beings versus those who see them as trophies, achievements, or status symbols to display to other men. The performance trap. Society expects beautiful women to be grateful for their attractiveness, while simultaneously punishing them for acknowledging it. They must appear humble about their looks, while maintaining them to keep social advantages. This creates an exhausting performance where they must pretend their beauty is accidental, effortless, and unimportant, while investing enormous time and money into maintaining it. The internal dehumanization, perhaps most tragically, beautiful women begin to objectify themselves. They learn to see their own bodies as separate from their identity, monitoring and optimizing their appearance like external assets, rather than integrated parts of their humanity. They develop split personalities, the observed body that must be perfect, and the observing mind that's never quite good enough to justify the attention the body receives. Schopenhauer's tragic recognition. Schopenhauer saw that society creates systems that reduce complex human beings to their most superficial characteristics. Beautiful women become victims of their own advantages, trapped in roles that provide power through dehumanization. They gain influence by accepting objectification, creating a devil's bargain, where success requires sacrificing authentic selfhood. The escape impossibility. The cruelest aspect is that beautiful women can't easily escape this system. Rejecting beauty culture means losing social advantages, but participating in it means accepting objectification. They're damned if they leverage their looks and damned if they don't, trapped in a social structure that punishes them for both using and refusing their natural advantages. The recognition of the machine. Eventually, many beautiful women recognize their products in a machine that profits from their insecurity, consumes their youth, and discards them when newer models become available. This recognition can be liberating or devastating, depending on whether they can build identity and value beyond the narrow confines of physical attractiveness. Comment: human, not object. If you've ever felt reduced to your physical attributes while your mind and soul were completely ignored. The fourth principle reveals the psychology of self-sabotage that beautiful women use to protect themselves from inevitable abandonment. Section 4. The sabotage sanctuary. When self-destruction becomes self-protection, she's done it again. The relationship was perfect. Too perfect. He genuinely seemed to love her mind, her personality, her quirks. So she started the testing, the dramatic arguments over nothing, the sudden coldness, the impossible demands. Within weeks he was gone, confirming what she'd always suspected. It was too good to be true. Schopenhauer's understanding of self-preservation. Schopenhauer wrote about the human tendency towards self-destruction as a form of control over inevitable suffering. It is easier to bear a pain that we have inflicted upon ourselves than one inflicted by others. Beautiful women master this principle through relationship sabotage that appears irrational but serves a deeper psychological purpose. If abandonment is inevitable, and their experience suggests it is, then controlling the timing and method of that abandonment becomes a form of emotional self-defense. The psychology of preemptive strikes. Beautiful women learn early that their relationships follow predictable patterns. Initial obsession based on appearance, gradual disillusionment when reality doesn't match fantasy, eventual abandonment when novelty wears off, or someone more attractive appears. Rather than endure this cycle passively, many develop sabotage strategies that end relationships on their terms before partners can leave them. It's emotional warfare disguised as instability. The testing phase. She creates impossible scenarios designed to reveal her partner's true character. Will he stay if she gains weight? Will he love her during emotional breakdowns? Will he choose her when attractive alternatives present themselves? These tests seem cruel to partners who don't understand they're part of an unconscious research project designed to determine how long this relationship will last before inevitable disappointment. The perfection rejection syndrome. Beautiful women who've been repeatedly valued only for appearance develop deep suspicion of genuine love. When someone claims to love their mind, personality, or character, alarm bells ring instead of joy bells. They've learned that men lie about loving the real them to gain access to their beauty. So when authentic appreciation appears, they often reject it as more sophisticated manipulation. The emotional eating spiral. Many beautiful women sabotage their appearance through eating disorders, weight gain, or deliberate neglect of their looks. This self-destruction serves multiple psychological functions: testing partner loyalty, rebelling against beauty standards, and escaping the pressure of maintaining perfection. If their value is tied to appearance, destroying that appearance becomes a form of suicide that allows them to discover what, if anything, remains when beauty is gone. The career self-sabotage. Professional self-sabotage manifests as rejecting opportunities that might be attributed to appearance rather than merit. Beautiful women often undersell themselves, refuse promotions, or choose careers that minimize their looks to avoid questions about their competence. They'd rather fail on their own terms than succeed while wondering if their achievements are authentic. The relationship cycling pattern. She develops a pattern of starting relationships with genuine enthusiasm, then systematically destroying them through behavior designed to drive partners away. Each destroyed relationship confirms her worldview, that beauty-based attraction is temporary and meaningless. This becomes addictive because it provides control over abandonment, while reinforcing the narrative that genuine love is impossible for someone whose primary value is superficial. The financial self-destruction. Some beautiful women sabotage financial stability by rejecting opportunities that leverage their appearance, or by spending compulsively on beauty maintenance that keeps them financially dependent and emotionally unstable. They create chaos in areas where their looks could provide advantage, unconsciously ensuring they can't become too comfortable with benefits they believe are undeserved or temporary. The social circle destruction. She systematically destroys friendships and social connections through behavior that drives people away. This serves the dual purpose of avoiding eventual rejection, while confirming her belief that people only tolerate her for superficial reasons. If everyone leaves, she never has to discover whether anyone would have stayed for authentic reasons. Schopenhauer's recognition of protective suffering. Schopenhauer understood that humans often choose familiar suffering over unknown happiness because suffering feels controllable, while happiness feels vulnerable. Beautiful women perfect this principle by creating predictable relationship disasters that feel safer than risking genuine connection. They become experts at managing self-inflicted pain while remaining helpless against pain inflicted by others' expectations, rejections, and objectification. The isolation sanctuary. Eventually, many beautiful women retreat into isolation that feels safer than risking more disappointment. They build walls that keep everyone out, then feel lonely but protected inside their emotional fortresses. This isolation becomes both punishment and reward. Punishment for being beautiful enough to attract attention. Reward for finally escaping the exhausting performance of maintaining that beauty for others' consumption. The recognition of the pattern. The most devastating moment comes when beautiful women recognize their own sabotage patterns but feel powerless to change them. They see themselves destroying good relationships and opportunities, but continue the behavior because it feels safer than vulnerability. This recognition can lead to either profound healing or deeper self-destruction, depending on whether they can find the courage to risk genuine connection despite past disappointments. Comment: I sabotage everything. If you've ever destroyed something good because you couldn't believe it would last. The final revelation exposes the ultimate curse, how beauty becomes a barrier to authentic love and genuine connection. Section 5. The authentic love impossibility. Beauty as barrier to soul connection plus the path to liberation. She sits across from a man who claims to love her. He lists her wonderful qualities, her beauty, her grace, her elegance. He never mentions her thoughts, her dreams, her fears, her bizarre sense of humor that emerges at 3 a.m. during vulnerable conversations. She realizes with crushing clarity that he's fallen in love with a projection, not a person. Schopenhauer's ultimate recognition. Schopenhauer wrote, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone." For beautiful women, this solitude becomes permanent because their beauty creates a barrier that prevents others from seeing their authentic selves. They remain alone even in relationships, surrounded by admirers who love their image, but flee from their reality. The philosopher understood that true connection requires seeing beyond surface appearances to the complex, flawed, magnificent human being beneath. But beauty, particularly exceptional beauty, makes this vision nearly impossible for most people. The love illusion complex. Men fall in love with beautiful women before knowing them. They project fantasies onto attractive faces, creating elaborate romantic narratives based on appearance alone. When reality contradicts these projections, when she's moody, intellectual, opinionated, complex, the love dissolves because it was never based on her actual character. She learns to recognize this pattern. Intense initial attraction followed by gradual disappointment as her humanity emerges and contradicts his fantasy. The personality invisibility effect. Her beauty becomes so overwhelming that her personality becomes invisible. People assume beautiful women are simple, vain, or unintelligent because acknowledging their complexity would shatter comfortable stereotypes that make objectification easier. She can be brilliant, but people only notice her looks. She can be funny, but people only remember her smile. She can be deep, but people only see her surface. The authentic connection barrier. Genuine connection requires mutual vulnerability, shared imperfection, and reciprocal discovery. But beautiful women rarely receive this authentic engagement because people approach them with predetermined narratives about who they must be based on how they look. They become actresses playing roles others have written for them, never able to reveal their true characters because audiences refuse to see beyond the costume. The intelligence punishment. When beautiful women display intelligence that surpasses expectations, they're often punished for violating stereotypes. Men feel threatened by smart, beautiful women because it complicates their simple desire. Women feel intimidated because it seems unfair that someone should have both beauty and brains. She learns to hide her intelligence to maintain relationships, dumbing herself down to make others comfortable, further contributing to her own authenticity crisis. The emotional depth denial. People assume beautiful women have perfect lives and no real problems. Their emotional struggles are dismissed as vanity or attention-seeking. Their depression is attributed to superficiality. Their anxiety is seen as manufactured drama. This denial of their emotional complexity adds another layer of isolation, preventing them from receiving the empathy and support that would come naturally to less attractive people with identical problems. The Schopenhauer solution. Near the end of his life, Schopenhauer suggested that true happiness comes from transcending the will to live, the desperate desires that keep us trapped in suffering cycles. For beautiful women, this transcendence means learning to find identity and value beyond physical appearance. It requires the courage to risk losing social advantages by refusing to play beauty-based games, choosing authentic connection over superficial attention, and building life meaning that doesn't depend on others' approval or desire. The path to liberation. Liberation begins with the radical decision to value being known over being desired. It means choosing relationships with people who are attracted to character rather than appearance, even if this dramatically reduces the number of available options. It requires developing interests, skills, and passions that have nothing to do with beauty, creating identity anchors that remain stable as physical appearance changes over time. The authenticity revolution. Some beautiful women eventually stage personal revolutions against beauty culture. They stop performing femininity for others' consumption. They dress for themselves. They speak their minds regardless of whether it makes them seem difficult. This authenticity often reduces their social power, but increases their personal freedom, trading widespread admiration for genuine connection with fewer but more valuable people. Personal confession. I want to tell you something I've never shared publicly. I once knew a woman so beautiful that conversations stopped when she entered rooms. But what I remember most isn't her appearance. It's the sadness in her eyes when she realized that her beauty had become a wall between her and the world. She told me she would trade her looks for the ability to know if anyone would love her for who she really was. That conversation changed how I see beauty forever, not as a gift, but as a complex burden that most people never understand. The ultimate recognition, beauty, as Schopenhauer understood, becomes a curse precisely because it provides temporary power within systems designed to ultimately diminish those who possess it. The beautiful woman gains early advantages in games rigged against her long-term fulfillment, but awareness of this curse can become the first step toward freedom. When beautiful women recognize the prison their beauty has created, they can begin building lives based on authentic values rather than appearance-dependent validation. The choice that changes everything. Every beautiful woman faces a choice: continue playing roles others have written for her, or risk everything to discover who she really is beneath society's projections. The first path offers familiar suffering. The second offers unknown possibility. The courage to choose authenticity over approval, connection over admiration, and inner development over external validation becomes the key that unlocks the golden cage of beauty. Comment: I choose authenticity if you're ready to risk being disliked for who you really are, rather than loved for who you're not. Like this video only if you commit to seeing beautiful women as complex human beings, rather than objects for your consumption or comparison. Subscribe if you want more philosophical insights that challenge society's most destructive assumptions about beauty, worth, and human value. Your liberation, whether you're beautiful or not, begins when you stop reducing yourself or others to surface appearances and start honoring the magnificent complexity that exists within every human being. Schopenhauer's final gift, the recognition that true beauty lies not in physical perfection, but in the courage to be authentically human in a world